Every day of our lives, as humans, we find ourselves making numerous decisions. Sometimes, they are trivial decisions like choosing which brand of cereal to buy, while other times, they are important and quite difficult choices. These decisions usually involve a certain level of risk, and most people's natural aversion to risk leads them to make more conservative decisions, which are often wrong. Risk is still frequently demonized today, mainly by those who are not familiar with making risky decisions in an analytical and rational manner. They believe that taking risks is equivalent to gambling. As a result, they seek refuge in their safe haven, not realizing that the inability to handle risky situations and miss opportunities is far more dangerous. The greatest risk of all, in fact, is never taking risks. Many people struggle to fully understand the relationship between risk and benefit when making a decision, or to interpret the relationship between the probability of an event occurring and its impact. As a consequence, important decisions are often not made correctly. According to an article by Catherine Wang on towardsdatascience.com, less than 10% of people know the basics of probability calculation, and among those, only about 1% apply a probabilistic approach to their everyday life decisions. Someone might be proficient in probability calculations and aware of probabilistic thinking, but still not be able to make the right decision based on the available information, primarily due to their aversion to risk. In this video, I want to share some simple rules that anyone can follow when making decisions that involve risks. You don't need to be a math genius to understand these concepts. When I talk about taking risks, many of you probably think about financial matters. However, risk exists in many other areas, such as health. For example, if you drink alcohol and do drugs every day, the risk is that you may face health problems in the future, while the benefit is the pleasure these vices provide in the short term. Similarly, in relationships, if you're in a place and see someone you like but are unsure whether to approach them or not, the risk is the possibility of being rejected. For some people, it might not be a big deal, but for others, it could significantly impact their self-esteem. The benefit, on the other hand, is the possibility of them agreeing to go out with you. You can even apply this risk concept to cooking. If you have friends coming over for dinner, would you try to impress them with a special dish that has a unique flavor that might not please everyone, or would you play it safe and cook something more traditional? First, let's look at two graphs, and then we'll play a game. The first graph shows the impact of an event and the probability of it occurring. When we have to take risks, we generally want to avoid dangerous events with a high probability of happening and an extremely negative impact. However, we should be more inclined to take risks with a low probability of occurring and, even if they did, would have a limited impact. The most challenging zone is the one you see in yellow on the screen, which represents risks with a high probability of happening but a low negative impact, and risks with a low probability of happening but a high impact, along with the middle part of the yellow area. The key factor in deciding whether to take these risks or not is usually dictated by the benefit we would have if the risk pays off. This is where we talk about risk-benefit. As they say, if you don't risk much, you probably won't have losses, but you also won't enjoy the benefits of successfully making a risky decision. To better understand this concept, let's play a game now. You have a red button and a green button in front of you, and you have to choose which one to press. If you press the red button, you'll receive $100,000 in cash immediately, no questions asked. If you press the green button, you have a 50% chance of receiving $1 million, a simple coin toss. If it's heads, you get $1 million, if it's tails, you get nothing. Which button do you decide to press? Surprisingly, despite the fact that logically and mathematically the right choice is to press the green button, most people will opt for the more conservative option and press the red button. But why is that? Mainly because most people focus on the actual result rather than the expected outcome. If they get tails, they won't get anything, so they prefer to just go for the guaranteed $100,000 choice. Instead, what we should learn to do when facing risky situations is simply to make the correct decision. In this case, pressing the green button has an expected value of $500,000, 50% of $1 million, so every time you choose to press the green button, you'll have a return of $400,000 more than when you press the red button. Theoretically, having 50% of $1 million or having $500,000 is the same thing, but with higher risk and reward. If they offered you $500,000 instead of $100,000 when pressing the red button, the choice between the two buttons would be totally indifferent. Now, while from a mathematical point of view, the choice should always be to press the green button, there are other factors to consider when making this choice, and I'll use a couple of laws and principles to explain it. The first one is the law of diminishing marginal utility. In this case, the same amount of additional money is less useful to a wealthy person than it is to a poor person. What does this mean? Let's assume for a moment that we have a net worth of $500,000. In this case, the additional $100,000 we'd receive by pressing the red button wouldn't change our life much, so we'd feel freer to make the mathematically correct choice, which is to press the green button with an expected value of $500,000. Now, suppose we're unemployed, with overdue bills to pay, and maybe facing eviction. Even though, from a mathematical point of view, the expected value of the green button is much higher, the risk of losing the coin toss would be too high for us, and pressing the red button would provide us with $100,000 immediately, allowing us to pay rent, bills, and get our life back on track. The principle of utility maximization says that sometimes the goal is not to maximize the expected gain, in this case, pressing the green button, but to maximize the expected utility. In this case, the first $100,000 could drastically change the life of someone on the verge of eviction, while the additional $400,000 in expected value might not have the same impact. Daniel Kahneman's prospect theory, which challenges expected utility theory, is the founding principle of behavioral economics. In simple terms, it describes how individuals asymmetrically value their prospects of loss and gain. For example, for some people, the pain of losing $1,000 might only be offset by the pleasure of gaining $2,000. The pain of loss is therefore much greater than the joy of winning. This is just an example. For some people, this ratio might be even higher, like 4-to-1 or 5-to-1, while for others, it might be lower. Now, let's see all the possible responses to our quiz, based on the different factors we discussed in this video. According to expected value theory, you should choose the green button for its expected value of $500,000, 50% of $1 million, which is much better than the guaranteed $100,000 from the red button. For people with low risk tolerance, the red button might be the right choice. I say right in quotes because we should strive to understand that in the long run, making decisions with an expected value 5 times lower than the other option will cause us to miss out on countless opportunities. Try to understand the relationship between risk and benefit before making a decision and avoid making a choice simply because it's less risky. The third option, if available, is risk sharing. What am I talking about? How does risk sharing work? Risk sharing can be applied in different ways, depending on the situation and your ability to find other people willing to take on part of the risk associated with pressing the green button on your behalf. But why would they do that? As explained earlier, where there are risks, there are also benefits, and in this case, we can decide the benefits together. For example, you could try to find different financiers, or even a single multi-millionaire, if you can find one, and offer them the option to press the green button for $400,000. This way, you'd receive $400,000 risk-free, and they would receive an expected value of $500,000, 50% of $1 million, at a discounted price. In this case, they would have an average profit of $100,000. For the reasons explained before, in our example, a group of wealthy financiers or a multi-millionaire wouldn't have a problem pressing the green button because the expected value of their choice would be positive, and any potential loss wouldn't have a significant impact on their capital. This is also the main reason why, in the videos on this channel, we often emphasize the importance of investing only what you're willing to lose to avoid the risk of ruin. We don't want to expose ourselves in a way that allows our emotions to influence our decisions, leading us to make wrong choices. For example, it would be a beginner's mistake to sell an investment with great prospects just because it had a drastic price drop in a few days, fearing the loss of everything. In the long run, the accumulation of wrong choices and wasted opportunities takes its toll, and as I said before, this not only applies to financial matters. I used a monetary example for simplicity, but the same principle applies to health, relationships, and more. Think about it. If you want to cheat on your partner, is it really worth it? What are the chances of getting caught, and what's the impact on your relationship or even your life if it happens? And what are the benefits of having an affair? Now, you have the right tools to make a thorough analysis before making hasty decisions. When it's time to take risks and make decisions, you can choose the lazy option, which is relying on your instinct. I'm not saying it's always wrong in all situations, but it's an irrational factor, and even though it's the most beloved option for most people because it requires no effort on their part, you can also opt for a more analytical approach to your decisions by weighing the pros and cons of taking a certain risk. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your opinion in the comments. If you're interested in this topic, I also recommend watching the game theory video that you can find on this channel. Have a great day, and until next time.